Welcome to Afra's Artifacts, where we do some archaeology of our own and dig into the queer side of Star Wars. I'm your host, Alia Morgaine, and it's so great to have you here. Well, today we are finishing up our discussion of Kantam Sy's past, as told in the young adult novel Midnight Horizon by Daniel Jose Older. And this part 3, is how Kantam found their way back to the Jedi. So this part starts on Naboo. So eventually Kantam is on Naboo. They're working for a high-end communication company by delivering covert messages between diplomats, in-person delivery of messages on Alderaan and Naboo. So they're going from planet to planet, traveling from planet to planet to deliver messages that could be delivered by comlink, but apparently these were messages that were just too sensitive to be delivered digitally, so they had to be delivered in person. And needless to say, Kantam was paid very well. And at one point, Kantam is on Naboo and is outside just enjoying the sun, and then they feel a stirring within, the gentle nudge of the Force. And with that, they know something is about to happen. So there's a nearby culvor in a tree, this big bird species known for snatching children and dashing them against rocks. They're also called Vangertracks or Vanishers because they tend to make children disappear. A little scary because there is a nearby orphanage in this scene, and children from that orphanage were outside playing when the bird attacks. The bird grabs a little girl and a little boy and flies away. So Kantam is springing into action to save the two children. They are doing everything they can to save them. And they jump into a river and rush up a mountain following the disappearing bird. The culvor releases the two children, and Kantam desperately reaches out with the Force to catch their fall. Unfortunately, they're able to catch the girl, but they cannot manage to also catch the boy. Of course, this is distressing to Kantam, but all is not as it seems. So it talks a little bit about the little girl. It says, she was tiny, in a little blue orphanage dress, and clenching her face tightly, with one hand stretched out, just like Kantam's had been. So her hand stretched out. Why? Well, it turns out her arm is outstretched because she's using the Force to stop the boy from falling. So it turns out the little girl is Force sensitive, and it's really cool because, as Kantam says, doing something like that sort of maneuver takes concentration, will, and training to master. But all this little girl needed was to observe it and do it. She didn't have to spend time practicing. She didn't have to have training. She just knew how to do it. Pretty prodigy level stuff. And it says, Kantam turned his attention to the little girl, crouching to be closer to her eye level. She had dark brown skin and her hair was done up in two neat little buns. Did you do that? Kantam asked, looking her right in the eyes. Did you stop your friend from falling? She nodded, eyes wide, like she wasn't sure if she'd done something wrong. Kantam wanted to hug her, tell her everything was going to be okay. They also needed answers. How did you do that? She lifted her tiny shoulders all the way up to her ears. Is what you did, she said, almost accusingly. So I did. Kantam nodded, blinking back tears. I did a bad? The girl asked, starting to cry too. No, Kantam said, shaking their head. No, you did a very, very good. The world seemed so alive, even more than it had moments before. Kantam felt the force quickening around them like a rush of wind. Nothing had made sense, not since Atar had shown up like a sudden storm in Kantam's life. And finally, without warning, that was okay. Nothing needed to make sense. Kantam had allowed the galaxy to be what it was, and now the galaxy seemed to be curving around Kantam, reminding them, allowing them to be what they were. And that, very simply and without complication or doubt, was a Jedi. The little girl grabbed Kantam's sleeve. Then why are you crying? Because I can finally listen again, Kantam said, smiling. So Kantam is realizing that this time away was not a bad thing at all, but that they weren't able to listen to the Force. They weren't able to hear the Force. And because there was just so much going on, so much confusion, so much frustration, so much uncertainty, emotions, feelings, and now suddenly everything seems clearer and Kantam can listen again. So, of course, Kantam takes the little girl with them to go find Yoda. And they return to Yoda, and lo and behold, the little girl is Lula Talisola. So Kantam is the one who brings their Padawan to the Jedi Order. They're the one that brings Lula into the Jedi Order. I love Lula. This was a really cute way to show how she was found to be Force sensitive, and she's an amazing character. Check out my video on her and Zine Morala. They are both fab characters. So the two arrive just in time to help Yoda hold up some falling Happabors that had been sitting on top of a roof. A mother, Monsalmo, and her many pups. I'm talking like there were, I can't remember the exact number, but there were over 10 pups. So lots of Happabors, and you know they're pretty big and kind of heavy. And the little girl, as she is helping hold up the Happabors, a tiny voice proclaimed, "I did a good." Yoda looked down into the bright brown eyes of a little girl with both hands outstretched. Behind her, Kantam Sy stood, their own arms extended to take the weight of Monsalmo. Yoda chuckled, already swinging the litter off towards safety. Left a Padawan you did, Returned you have, a knight. Kantam couldn't stop the smile from spreading across their face. Master Yoda, this is Lula Talisola. And, of course, after that, Kantam is knighted. So all it took was Kantam going off, doing their own thing, learning about life, experiencing life, and then finding the Force again and finding Lula, and Kantam is knighted. So Kantam says, "I don't really understand what happened, Master Yoda." Yoda nodded with a wry smile. "Become used to that, we must." "I know, but it was so sudden." "Sudden?" Yoda was laughing, a full-throated, raspy cackle that seemed to cut through the evening stillness. "Gone for more than a year, you were. All this time, all your life, led up to that moment. Opposite of sudden it was. Long time in coming, really." "But what changed?" "I felt the shift like a clap of thunder. One moment I was moving along like I had been, just gliding along the surface of my own life. And then this tiny person came along and..." Yoda let out an amused snort and poked the fire. "The young are our greatest teachers, it is said. But why? Not for the things they say. Still several years it will be before this one has wisdom to impart in that way, She did a good, Kantam said with a grin. So cute. Exactly. No, it is in who they are to us that their wisdom lives. Do the work we must. The lesson of younglings we take on is one of the hardest ones for most Jedi to learn. Indeed, some never do. Detachment, Kantam said. And so they talk a little bit about managing to let go of various emotions in the past, only to have each return as if they were never gone. So basically mindfulness, the art of seeing emotions, letting them pass by you like clouds in the sky, and then moving on from them. Of course, those emotions will come back, and you just watch them as clouds in the sky and let them pass by you again. So that is what they are discussing at this time. And then Kantam thinks, Yoda was right, though. Those weren't failures. The struggle, the lesson, really was simply ongoing. To love is to let go. To be Jedi is to let go. Yoda's eyes seemed unfathomably sad suddenly, but then he smiled, and the smile was a real one. I taught you this lesson, Kantam said, realizing it was true as the words came out. Easy, you think it was, to send you into the galaxy that day. So that's basically where it ends. Yoda is just saying, like, look, Kantam, you think I'm this all-powerful Master Yoda and know all these things and have all this wisdom, but it was hard for me to let you go that day. You were my Padawan. I cared for you. I loved you, and I had to let you go, and that was very, very difficult. And I'm very happy you're back, but I'm glad that I let you go because it was necessary for you to end up where you are now. And I just, it's just so, again, it's the High Republic Jedi versus the prequel Jedi. The High Republic Jedi let people be people, let humans be humans, at least to some degree. But the prequel Jedi don't let them be human ever at all. I will say there is one sticking point with the High Republic Jedi that's on par with the prequel Jedi, is not allowing Zine Morella to train as a Jedi. She's Force sensitive, but she's too old, so that whole ridiculous thing. Of course, they let her stick around and they let her use the Force. She just can't get a lightsaber, so she still kind of does the Jedi thing. It's kind of cool. And they respect her and use her knowledge and skills a lot. So she may not be technically a Jedi, but she does get used almost as one. But anyway, that's Kantam's story of their past. It's just a neat difference from the prequel Jedi, I think. That going off, doing that kind of walkabout, doing that self-exploration, searching for self-discovery, and learning a lot, and moving forward eventually as a Jedi, but only after they had their experiences outside of being a Jedi, which means so much because Jedi start their learning so early. I mean, young kids, nearly toddlers, start out as Jedi. So letting them be kids, letting them be human, I think is very important. Because how are you going to understand the world around you if you've lived in a temple your entire life? I just don't think it works that way at all. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below on what you think about Kantam Sy's past, what you think about the state of the Jedi in the High Republic. I would love to hear your thoughts. And continuing from here, we'll dig into the High Republic Adventure comic books, the kind of all ages comics that Kantam Sy is a fairly big part of as a master of Padawans on the Starlight. So, yeah. Thank you for watching. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter at AliaMorgaine, and peruse my blog at thestarsreview.blogspot.com. May the Force be with you.